Hello, I'm Bill Weaver. It's my wife Sue, and we're going to go through the way we make pierogies, start to finish, and a little time lapse and all, and hope you enjoy. Okay. For a large batch of pierogies, we usually use about 10 pounds of potatoes. Today we're using the russet, but you can use white or you can use red. And we peel them just like you're going to do for mashed potatoes. Cut them up into pieces. Put them in a pot in boiling water and cook them until they're relatively soft, just like you would mashed potatoes. Potatoes are cut into about 1 inch thick pieces or 3/4 of an inch thick pieces, and then they'll be cooked till they're soft. One trick is we do this the day before, so they actually have time to cool down with the cheese mixture in them. And this way they condense and you get more filling inside your pierogies instead of them being all fluffed up when you start. So we're going to cook these down now and then take it from there. After the potatoes are soft and done, now it's time to drain them.
Stick and a half of butter for 10 pounds of potatoes. Cheese.
We then add a bunch of cheese, and there's never a known amount. It's just you add it till basically it becomes thicker enough or thicker to work with. And then this is going to be refrigerated, because after it's refrigerated, it'll be thicker, and then tomorrow it won't be. It'll be more dense, so that you have more filling in your pierogies. Also, it's important to put the cheese in while it's hot so it melts into the potato. Grandma Spearco always used American cheese, and we used to use white, but this time there was a little mess up, so they gave us yellow. But it's still good. It just has paprika in it. And you taste it, and you just want it to have like that cheesy flavor. We also don't add any salt. This way anybody can salt it if they want to. So that's the mixture. Now I'll put this away overnight, let it cool down. It'll condense more, and this way we'll have more filling in our pierogies tomorrow. Over and out. The tools we've used that really speed things up are a KitchenAid mixer with a mixing blade and then a dough hook, and I'll explain how we use them in a few minutes. A rolling pin, a measuring cup for the water, unbleached flour, eggs, a cutter, a muffin cutter, about 3 inches or so, a cookie scoop for the potato cheese mixture, which is about 3/4 ounce, and a bowl with a whisk where I actually whisk the egg, and then also the plastic bags to let the dough rest in. We also use a large pot, which we actually get the water boiling before, because we usually cook these before we freeze them. The first step with the dough is to put the egg and water mixture together. Put an egg into the bowl, add a half a cup of water. Then we whisk it. Basically, till it becomes foamy. That's about right. Now it'll be ready to add to the flour. You measure out 2 cups of flour. It doesn't have to be exact. And then we put the mixing blade in first. Bring it up. I'm going to put it about 1 or 2. And then we're going to add our egg and water mixture. After a short time, maybe 20-30 seconds, we're going to switch out the blade. Knock as much of the mixture off of the mixing blade. Put in the dough hook. Which we're now going to put on about a setting of 2 for 7 minutes. We tried all different times. For some reason, 7 minutes seems to be the time that works the best. If after a few minutes it looks a little dry, you may need to add just a little bit of water, more almost like a tablespoon. There it goes. Because you want it to be like in the shape of a ball. It's a little dry here today because of the weather outside after the snow, and it's only 12 degrees. So. Alright, 7 minutes is up. And this is what it should look like. Pliable. But now you're going to let it rest. So the way we do that is we just put it in a plastic bag and let it sit for like 15 minutes to a half hour. And now we're ready for our second batch. 2 cups of flour. One egg, half a cup of water, whisk it till it's foamy. On 1 or 2, and pour it in. Put the mixing blade in. Just to mix it up a little. I used to try it with just a dough hook and it wouldn't work. The whole trick is putting the mixing blade on first. right. Clear the blade off. And we'll go back to the dough hook. Fast there. For 7 minutes. Okay, 7 minutes have gone by, and that's what it should look like. Basically, dough is just pliable. I'm going to add more flour when we roll it out, but that's what it should look like. Okay, so now we've got the dough all made, and now what we're going to do is we're going to start rolling it out. Basically, we'll just take one section at a time, and with a rolling pin, I'm going to flour the table. Another thing I found, that if you use a strainer and you put flour in it, like this, and you put it over your surface like this, it makes it really easy to roll it out without it sticking and without using a lot of flour. Just another little trick we've learned over the years. Okay, so now we just roll the dough out, flip it. Just use enough flour just so it doesn't stick. Sometimes it takes a little practice, but you get an idea about the thickness you want. You don't want them too thick because then you're going to have a doughy pierogi. You don't want them too thin because you want them holding together. That's about right. Alright, so now we cut them. Basically, Sue does it.
You do it, I don't.
I'll do it. Just a little pressure, a little twist. And sometimes what I'll do too is, depending on the kind of day it is, like today is a very, very dry day in here because of the cold weather, what I'll do sometimes is I'll flip them so they stick together better. We'll pull this up, and this dough we'll use for another batch. Sometimes they're a little stickier on the bottom. Yeah, they are. Okay, now Sue will fill them. We use 1 scoop, and then after it's scooped, we're going to pull it apart like this, stretch it out a little bit, and then just seal it. Like this, pulling out. You don't want the potato to get with the dough. You want to keep it separate. When it's cold, a lot of times it'll stay away from that. Now I just set them up, and Sue likes to crimp them a little bit better, so I'll leave that up to her. But I'll just seal them, and then she'll crimp them, make sure they're tight. You can use a fork too, but basically you're just pulling it like that, pulling it. Basically, and with the scoop, you're getting the same amount in, and it's the same size, so you're pretty consistent with your filling. And now this is just going to take time with each batch of dough, and this is the time part, where sometimes it can take a few hours or whatever, but we'll come back on after we're ready for the next step. But basically you'll do this with each batch until you're ready to put them in the water. And also you have the water on the stove Now bring it up to a full boil. You want it boiling vigorously before you put these in. Okay. All right, you want to make sure too that the pot's in a rolling boil before you put them in. And then you're going to put in anywhere about a dozen or so at a time, and very gently you're just going to stir it and bring it back to a boil, and basically cook them for about 5 minutes until they all float. And then you're going to bring them out and cool them down pretty quick. Sue's going to put them in. About a dozen. All right, we're going to do a dozen this round. Sometimes you can do a little bit more, but you don't want to overload it because then they'll end up sticking together and opening up. Now basically you're just going to bring them to a boil again and cook them for about 5 minutes. And they're all floating on the top and they're ready to go. So now we take them out with one of these bamboo or Chinese strainers and we put them in a colander, nice and gentle. Now what we're going to do is we're going to run these under cold water. Very gently. Just to cool them down quick. Then we're going to put them on a tray. And usually we put them in the freezer, but today it's 11 degrees outside. So we're going to let them freeze outside before we put them in the bag. Okay, to make the cheese sauce, like Grandma Spirko did, we just eyeball it. We put a good chunk of butter in the pot, melt it down, basically. And one little trick that we do is we add some half and half to make it creamier. And we bring that up to heat, rip off pieces of cheese into it, just stir them. And basically, you're just looking for the cheese to melt into it, form an emulsion. Nice cheese sauce. And we usually have a tester for our pierogies, so we're going to make him a batch right now and take them up, and he'll let us know what they're like. And again, you keep adding cheese, and add a little bit more until it just thickens up a little bit. There's no set amount, it's all a matter of taste. We put no salt in anything too. So if people are watching their salt, this way they can still eat them. Or if you want to add salt, you can always do that. Put a little cheese sauce in the bottom. Alright. And then we basically add our pierogies. Just pour the cheese sauce on top. And that's it.